Hello, everyone. Welcome today to our live feed, our live stream interview with Danielle Deadwyler. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. I'm hoping I'm not having any problems, but we will be doing these interviews every week on Thursdays at 7 p.m. And just to get an opportunity to talk to our filmmakers one on one, as we're all kind of in a postponement mode with our festivals and whatnot right now. But the Atlanta Film Festival has been postponed officially to September 17th through the 27th. The submissions deadline is approaching. And it is here. I'm going to turn this off. I'm echoing here. And the deadline is coming up on June the 4th. So make sure if you want to submit for next year, we're still looking at 2021. Make sure you for the deadline. We also have badges that are still on sale. There's a 2-year membership deal. So a lot of things that are going on. Make sure that you go to the website, check everything out on the website, and you will get all of your information so you will be in the know. Also, this Saturday, May the 30th, from 10 to 12, I will be teaching a class called Creating Three-Dimensional Characters. It's a great class for actors of any level, any point in their careers. It's also good for filmmakers who want to learn how actors get in characters. I'll be focusing on ways to find out how to make you shine in your auditions, regardless of what the audition is, making sure that you shine and your personality is what's coming through, in addition to lots of other things. So it is also on the Atlanta Film Festival website. So go ahead and sign up. Tomorrow is our last day to sign up, as it's Saturday. So so you can get that going. Now, I am excited about today's interview. I became a fan of Miss Danielle Deadwyler with one scene on a show called Atlanta. And her performance to me just stood out so much. I was like, who is that? Oh my goodness, she's hilarious. But she is not just an actor, she is a multimedia artist. She's a filmmaker, writer. She does a little bit of it all. And before we get to talk to her, we are going to see her trailer teaser trailer. Is it teaser trailer? Right. Say that. We'll add that to red leather, yellow leather. Anyway, so we're going to check out her teaser, and then we're going to come back and talk to Danielle Deadwyler. Okay, so we have um, seen the trailer. Before we get into talking about the project, there's lots of places that we could start, but let's start with the obvious. Everything got shut down. Productions all around the world got shut down because of a global pandemic. And yet, you were working on a project called Station 11 that has been announced, but it's on hold. I know you can't tell us any details or anything. But for those who don't know, I'm just going to read what was on IMDb. Survivors of a devastating flu pandemic try to rebuild their lives after losing everything. So you were already working on this, and then it happened. How does that affect where your mind is right now with regards to art imitating life, life imitating art? How do you, how does this affect how you look at your character now?
Station 11, the book, is a bit imaginatively more treacherous. I'm not going to give that away. If someone wants to read the book, then they can. But it it's pretty it's a little surreal to come out of an experience, you're emotionally dealing with something, conceiving of it, imagining it, and then for it to be, you know, realized in some inkling of a way, right? Like, I get deeply entrenched in the work. I was alone in where we were shooting, so in kind of a way, I was, solitude state, not in quarantine and with my family, but like I was alone a lot.
Mhm.
So I was having to deal with that. What would that be? And so to turn around and for it to be legit, it's just, I mean, it's mind blowing. It's challenging, but this is for real, for real. This is a whole nother thing. This is a real dynamic. We legit hit 100,000 people
Right.
uh, in this country that have died, and to reckon with the truth of that, like the reality of that is, it's devastating and difficult. But we'll wake every day trying to do some semblance of good in yourself, with your family, in your community, by remaining at home.
So how long had you been, even prior to shooting, how long had you been involved with the process before shooting? Because a lot of times casting can happen the day before,
Yeah.
but, how long were you already involved?
Maybe a couple of weeks or so, like, 'cause, talk, you know, negotiations and to get you in the door or whatever. But a couple of weeks of prep, and then I was there in January, and obviously January is when you know
Right.
fan,
Started. Yeah.
right? And I was in it and watching it rev and being like, yeah, my son, no, I don't want my son to come visit. Like being in the work made me that much more critical of what was going on in my reality.
hmm So, but I, I definitely. Hold on. Okay. Um, how do you? Let me put this in the. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted a little bit, right?
No,
But,
no, no.
for TV and film to be interesting, it has to be heightened situations. So, I'm on The Walking Dead too. So it's like, I'm kind of looking at this situation from what is desolation, what is important. They never mentioned anything about toilet paper on The Walking Dead. So I was not prepared for that. No, I was prepared for that because I'm a mom.
The little thing.
Right. So what were some of the things that stood out to you during quarantine, during this time, that you were like, wow, I was not thinking that if it was going to go down, that it was going to go down like this.
I don't think I was thinking. I think I'm concentrated on the things that are needed. So it was like, oh, well, it was so immediate. You can only think about like the right now. So I was just entrenched in, you know, you have your health, you have food, you have the essential people who are around you. That's it. Like, oh well, we couldn't. Okay, you can make hand sanitizer or whatever. Like, but those were things that were big on set. It's much more about relationships in production world. This is about this was like you thinking about the outer world much more than your inner world, at least for me in that moment, because I was very much a part of the space that the productive film productions have.
Like the first 2 weeks, everybody was kind of just like in shock of when everything started getting locked down. We're just like, I cannot believe this is happening. And then there are the people that are like, yes, I'm going to work out. I'm going to do my art. I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to do all of this. And then there are the people that just kind of was like, well, I'm just going to eat and watch some TV. Where did you fall? Like, how did you spend your first 2 weeks? And how, as we're now accepting this normal, what are you doing?
I had to make sure my was good. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm homeschool mode.
Right.
So, like, world don't stop for his needs. But I was also very, very much emotionally aware that of the possibilities and being a human to that, right? Like making stuff. Let me keep my child in a state of calm, and let me try to create our new discipline, right? Because that's what it is. Like, what is this day to day? And then I meditated. What else you gonna do? You gotta, cool the body, cool the mind, and so that's what I try to do. And do things here and there. Lots of just taking information in, reading, and caring for my folks. And one of my big homies, she was like, check in on your elders. Check in on my elders. Talk to my family on a day-to-day basis. I had, it was just imperative to do that. I was on a set that before I came back home where people tested positive. And so I had to quarantine, right? Like being completely indoors, legit not going anywhere, not having the privilege to do that, right? To not have to step out at all for anything. So that was my beginning quarantine life.
How did that affect your son going through, those first 2 weeks? Was he already in spring break when it started, or was he about to go to spring break?
No, they weren't even. The conversation was happening in the school dynamic. What are we going to do? And then immediately upon me getting back, and then boom, you're right in quarantine. He was good. Children are
adaptable. Right, they're adaptable. Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, I get to be on my computer all day. Let's roll." He's a Fortnite like master or something. He would prefer me to say that. Yeah, he's a pro. So he was able to adjust pretty easily. You have your bumps in the road trying to create a schedule, a semblance of a schedule, and that schedule going straight to hell at some points. But it was. Give him alone.
Well, the other day I was just like, my son just need to go for a little while. Just he hears everything in the house. Just what did you just say? I'm gonna get a text in a minute. Stop talking about me. Anyway, but as artists, our lives already are constantly in flux. Like we don't know what's going to happen from day to day most of the time anyway as artists. And now the whole world is kind of dealing with how artists function on a day to day. Do you think being an artist has prepared you mindset more better for this, or
in this country for centuries. Like we understand that, we've been living with that, and then so to see the reaction that others are having to it, to see the reaction that the really violent reaction that folks is having to it is crazy. To watch that, but yeah, you've been reared in it. it's just there.
Have you had any epiphanies or anything during this time? Like, hey, you know what? This is right. Ding.
I don't know about like super epiphanies, but like I'm dreaming every night and I'm writing them down, and then I'm trying to decode whatever that means.
Dreammoods.com. That's my go-to. Dreammoods.com.
Some of those things are weird.
You know, I don't know what it was, but the first 2 weeks of quarantine, I was like my dreams were crystal clear. And I would write them down as soon as I woke up, and I looked it up and wrote everything down that I saw. And it was a consistent theme. One day that I just didn't remember anymore. Like they're all gone now.
A lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, I think it's the time. I'm having heavy dreams too. I don't never dream." Like, well, I mean, this has been like I've been reporting my dreams for years,
Right.
but like for me to consistently last 2.5 months have a dream every night, remember it every night,
Right.
taking heed of the subconscious, I think that much more. I think everybody's been in a mode where they've been forced to deal with their interior selves. To some people's chagrin, to some people's enlightenment, to some people's God knows what, but it's forced us to swim within our own selves a bit deeper.
Right, exactly. It's like if you don't know what you want out of life after this, or at least know what you don't want, because there's a lot of people that are stuck in situations now that they didn't realize were bad situations. Now they're like, I gotta change this, or you know, if you come out of this and you haven't made any changes, I don't know what we can say about folks, you know? Yeah.
Administrations and not doing the changing. So
Right, right. Well, let's a minute and talk about the work has stopped, but Georgia was the first place to kind of go back to work, and people felt all different types of ways. People may be angry, you know, politically or whatever, but really everybody did want to kind of go back to work or kind of get back going. What are some of the conversations that you're having with colleagues, friends in this industry about what you think is going to happen, how you think this is going to affect? We're all just kind of talking ourselves through it now.
you consider what the past was, what the experience was, to how people consume food on a set, how people the engagement. You know, if they're trying to reduce the amount of people, what does that look like? I have a lot of friends who've worked in a lot of different dynamics, who work in, you know, costumes, who work in, you know, AD departments, who work in uh, props. And what does it mean to reduce the crew? What's it mean to, how does that impact everybody? Like just the layering. Those have been the conversations we've had. What does it look like to have to put your makeup on by yourself for retouches? Like it's like that's that those things happen in a certain way on an indie set, but then they're very different on a set that might be, you know, the studio helm. So just doing the comparison and and throwing a dive, right? Like some things are coming out to that allow for a greater discussion, but they're like, nah, pump the brakes on going back to work. Like at least some Hollywood dynamics are. I've been, you know, trying to keep abreast of that because you have to care for the well-being of people, right? And I know the Tyler Perry Studios is going back, but like, how are they? You know, there's plans happening that have to be um, as dynamite as they possibly can. Because we're talking about people's lives, we're talking about family, we're talking about wellness, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about an overall like what is community and well-being, and that's very 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 important.
Yeah, what does it mean to connect nowadays? You know, it's like the world, like Mother Earth just told us, we're going to take a break. Y'all want to be online all the time? Okay, that's what we're going to do right now, everybody. And now let's break down. I feel like especially the month of April was like that month that everyone kind of dropped a lot of the pretenses of, you know, just not doing all the makeup, just not having all the fancy filters that we're so used to now, and kind of being a little bit more real and authentic. We'll see how that lasts, right? We'll see how that lasts now. But you know, you do a lot of different things. You're not just an actor. You're, you are a filmmaker. You're a performance artist. How do you see your art changing and move forward as this society moves forward? How do you think this will affect you and your work?
Um, the collaborative dynamic has kind of stayed the same. I've been working on an experimental doc with my team for we've been going at it for several months now, and it hasn't halted us. Rather, documentaries are still capable of doing the things that they need to do. This is an opportunity, right, to create space to have those kinds of interviews and dialogues, right? And so we just pivoted in the way that I talked about, like Black folks and artists having the capacity to do, and saying, okay, well, let's give it this flair now. Let's allow ourselves to use camera phones in this capacity. Let's still sending stuff via email. Like, that's how we make it happen. I'm talking with my homie Brandon right now about our post-production process and filming for like one more day, something that gives us the opportunity to social distance. So uh, those things are able to continue, right? My work tends to have a film presence, and then wants to have a live component as well. I'm still figuring out what that even means. I do theater as well, and so those mediums blend for me, creating that kind of hybrid experience of these like theatrical exhibitions that I make. I don't know what that is yet. I don't know what that is. I'm not pressuring it either. I'm okay taking a step back and just living in the digital space to make that happen. And then you move, past certain seasonal markers that will allow me to conceive of other abilities to show the work in the other layered medium process that I tend to enjoy, because the live component for me as a live body, interfacing with other folks, with other human beings, like live, is important, or indelible. But I don't know what that will be yet. I don't know. I don't know yet. But the making of things, the material making is great. The digital making of things um, has been good and allowed me to really hone in the
Of course, there's a fire truck or something going on out here. I don't know who hears what, right? But now Georgia has its own imagery, its own reality, and then there's the reality of Georgia that the rest of the country, the rest of the world is discovering. And I think a lot of people outside of here, yes, the film industry has grown exponentially in the last couple of years, but people don't think of Georgia as a arts place. Like, they don't think of the arts a lot of times when they think of Georgia as a whole. And yet there are so many different art forms. There are so many different worlds. You've got the independent filmmaker world that's always been here, that's represented through Atlanta Film Society, Atlanta Film Festival, and a lot of the our local independent filmmakers. But we've got the studio system that has come through, the Hollywood system. But then you also have the theaters. You also have creative artists, dancers. And how do you find your footing in these different worlds?
Oh man, I am a born and bred Atlantan. So the notion of art not being in this city or in this state, for that matter, like, is silly. I was reared in Atlanta Street Theater, classes at Clark Atlanta, like that's where they were held. I danced at Total Dance Theater. I danced at the Axons. Gary Harrison, like Spelman. I went to Spelman. Like, Spelman says it.
I'm like,
this is the thing. This is it's the notion that we are just now coming into the fold in some way is ridiculous. The studios are like completely like red, right? They motorcycles on the highway on a Sunday, right, on 20. But it's just been a part of my world. Like, it's a part of it's my life. right? Like I constantly, my first medium was dance, which was a natural segue into theater. My sister was a part of a lot of different arts organizations. So, it was almost like, a little path of breadcrumbs to follow down. But, she does a particular style of things and she's a master at that. And then I this way and try to create my own. But, and so that's my mother honed that for us or created that space for us. And um, that's just been the life. That's just been the life.
Now, what do you think? Because Atlanta Film Festival, what's so important about Atlanta Film Festival is that we're really a part of the voices and making sure the voices of independent filmmakers, but definitely local artists are getting heard. And so, whereas Atlanta Film Festival, I've known it since it was Image back in the day. Um, and again, the studio system that are kind of bringing in their own stories, telling what they think Georgia is or what they think Atlanta is. How do you think we can make sure that the studio systems with the money can get more of our Atlanta stories, can get more of our voices and us being able to tell what we see, what our reality of Atlanta is at Georgia, the South. How do you think those two systems can work?
Oh, well, I mean, I've witnessed a lot of folks just saying you have to we have to be funded. Folks have to be supported. One of the first like shorts and stuff that I started working on was with Brantley. Brantley's over at CAD, and she's been with the Atlanta Film Festival.
Brantley, yeah.
And her short film, like I said to myself, oh, I want to do. I want to do more Southern-based work, and then it came right in the form of working with her, and then working with House of June, Ebony Planning, right? Like that's the homie, like that. Oh snap! This is how work can look. It doesn't have to be. It's like what kind of work are you trying to do? You trying to do stuff with heart? Okay, that's what you bring to the fold. And so that opportunity came. And even before then, my sister was making works, short films, and creating presentations that enabled me to develop myself. And so I was like, oh well, it's constantly been a homegrown experience. Black folks and all kinds of folks are telling stories, just that aren't necessarily like Southern based, but yes, like that is an imprint on a lot of the things that I do. And that's just the gist. Folks have to continue to write. Folks have to continue to take a machete to the wood to create their own path, right. Create their own model, because nobody's just gonna give it to you.
Now, since we did mention our alma mater, Spelman College, right? I was a theater major at Spelman, but came in dual degree engineering, but had been acting a long time. So you weren't a theater major though, right?
No, I never studied theater post high school. It was like I said, it was just a part of my life. It never went away. It was something that I did every year because I thought it was it's just in the DNA. I studied history at Spelman, and I studied American Studies in grad school, and another master's in creative writing and poetry. So, it's the art was like it's like always there in tandem with the academic. Like these two things are merging naturally. Even when I was just more straight headed with academia, didn't want to. It was an itch. It was an incessant itch. And then I taught for 2 years after grad school, and was like, oh, the itch got heavier. I was like, man, I'm about to get some money, or
right.
do the thing that you have to do. So yeah, that was the natural move into that.
So I'll circle back because I kind of mentioned we talked a lot about voices and having your point of view, and Spelman is known. One of our saying is Spelman women have voices. I interviewed a group of my classmates in addition to my sister who went to Lincoln. And we were just talking about being out in the world. They were all scientists that I was interviewing them for another project. And we just really started talking about going to Spelman and going to a HBCU and being in a place that supports your vision and supports who you are and celebrates that. You know, if I had been a theater major somewhere else, I wouldn't have been studying Adrienne Kennedy and, you know what I mean, Zora Neale Hurston and a lot of Black women writers. How has, you know, you came through Atlanta, so you already had a sense of self from what you're saying of what you trained, but how was Spelman and going to an HBCU at large helped really develop what your point of view is and how you get that across?
Oh, the history component is a major factor. I feel like if I wasn't there focused on that as a discipline, I don't know what kind of an actor I would be. Let alone like just thinking about ADW. You know, I don't know if African diaspora in the world was there when you were there, but like that.
I was there a lot earlier than you were.
But that is such a connective tissue for everybody who went there. I wanted to be with Black women, period. That's why I made the choice against other schools that were options for me. I wanted to be in space to make those kind of, you know, to have that kind of processing. I needed to be comfortable. I needed to be I was comfortable to be uncomfortable, right? Like in a place where you can be vulnerable with your folks, and so that was really that was supreme for me. And yet, you know, when I needed to do this other thing, when I needed to go be in a theater world, I could audition for something, and those options were afforded me, right? So it felt that was really pivotal, right? You need to feel like you're at home. That's what it did. And so when to come back after having graduated and to do the Black Box program with the museum, keep like allowed Keep Dixon Hill over at the museum. I just remember interfacing with her, and like that was the first time I started. That was like the real push into doing performance art, which has to do performance art and experimenting with me. So when you're at home, the people are giving you the space for that, right? It's just a different vibe. It's a different energy to text to experiment. And so Spelman allowed me that, as well as like some of the oldest friends I've ever had.
Right. It's a whole different
Yeah.
It really, I felt the value of my education has grown substantially after graduation. And I'm so sad for the seniors this year that didn't get to march through the arch, and that's a beautiful tradition. So I'm hoping we'll be able to do something for them in the near future. But you have definitely made a point to focus on Black women, focus on our struggles, focus on, what we're doing. How did you make that transition from history to saying, no, I want to pursue this? This is what I want to do. And this is the format, because performance art is a little bit different off in its own little vibe. How did you transition to that?
Well, just to track into the history thing, like I was like, let's be in the academic world, right? I went to grad school with the intention of like
having a real job,
getting getting a master's, and being a professor, right? Like that was like, oh, I'm gonna go get my doctorate, and I was up for a program, and I was a finalist, and it didn't happen, and I was an intern with the governor's office, and I was just in the bathroom, like, what you gonna do, homie? And then teaching came, and I taught for 2 years in elementary school. And then next thing you know, you're in the car. What you gonna do, homie? And that was an urgent moment. That was the crystallization of you have to go do what you've always done. You tried to not do it, but now you have to. And so that's when I started doing theater again, and doing theater on the professional level, because I did for Color Girls, Jasmine Guy's directorial debut, and which was a natural segue to just doing theater, to working in the arts, and to really pounding the pavement. And then that, it took time, but that allowed me to create relationships that got me into to film and television.
So let's talk a little bit about chores.
Which can be titled chores, or it can be titled.
So explain that to me, because I'm like, we be looking and be like, okay, I think my son and I watched it together, and he's a budding filmmaker too. So we're like, okay, I think this could mean. And so, what was your thought process? What are you wanting people to take from it?
Oh man, everything I've done so far is centered around my experience as a mother, my experience as a woman who is, who has felt a particular kind of burden, and I've witnessed it in the legacy of the women who reared me. What does it mean to be a mother, to be a wife, and to be a laborer in all these other capacities? It felt like I had seen them work nonstop, and I was experiencing that just with less kids, right?
Right.
Grandmother had reared eight children. My mom is 3 of 8, and then I am number 3 of 4. And I was just like, Google and Moogle, how do you do this?
Right.
What in the world? Like, just on just the basis of what that experience is. But everything that I've been doing has been questioning what does it mean to labor in this body, labor particularly in the Black woman's body. What does it mean to look at the work that is public and private, to look at the work that is domestic and sexual, to look at things that are fictive and documentary, personal and political, like all of that has been bearing on the back of the work that I've been doing so far, work that is public, that is more public performance art, or the work that is in the film. So this chores is, an incorporation of Southern aesthetics, Southern sound, Southern style, and movement, and it is a single woman's kind of a chorus of labor, or the breaking down of what that labor does to the Black woman's body, and what the ramifications of that are.
Now, we had a little pre-talk when we were kind of chatting before this, and we talked a little bit about social media and platforms and how you utilize your platforms. It was brief, but it's still, we've had so many things that seem back to back to back to back to back that burden us as Black Americans, that burden us as Black moms, that burden us as Americans as a whole too. And it seems like we have different parts of our communities that understand some things more than others. How can art, and how is our art that we do individually, collectively, how can we help these conversations? How can we help move us into a more progressive space, where people are understanding and it's not, oh my God, really? Right,
I mean, I think that's what the work functions as for me. Conversation starters. It's first, a personal kind of psycho magic, to, take from Alejandro Jodorowsky's term. Like, it's a personal healing, first and foremost, familial healing, or upheaval, internal upheaval. And then that is a spillover into my interpersonal dynamic, my friends and my family, what that conversation is. And then that is a spillover into greater community. So I'm all about the intimate dynamic. What is it to have those conversations with folks after interfacing with the work in whatever way that you get to see it, whether you get to see a live piece, or whether you get to see something that's in digital or film form. I think that's what the work continues to do. With the work is supposed to make it so that you can have these conversations, so that and that was the whole point for me, right? Like, you can be in a film and TV world and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and you're working with folks on a vision. But I needed to talk about the things that were imperative to me, that were happening to me, and I needed to break out of the structure that theater had for it, or to break out of the structure that film and TV had for it. And so I was, wanting to express that, and so that, I think, that has allowed me to have those kinds of conversations, and that's what other artists are doing too. Tenfold, thousandfold, hundredfold, whatever. Like, everybody is making work so that they can to give greater conversation about something specific that is going on in them. And you might find connective tissues with other artists, with other, whomever. But I think we're doing it, and we have to do that. And Georgia has, like, I think in the past it's like we have the most per capita or something crazy, or Atlanta does. Like, we're a part of this conversation. The work continues to be done. It's just continuing to need support, for people to give support, to the folks who are doing the things that are imperative to you.
Well, that is a great segue. I'm gonna see if we have any questions. I'll check our little chat line to see if we get any questions in. And while we wait up for that, I will say we're kind of in a cool space right now as women of color, as streaming and all of these opportunities have just opened up. Whereas before, if my friends and I were auditioning for something, we knew only one of us was gonna get it. You know what I mean? There's only one black girl, But now, in a post Shondaland era, we see so many black women as leads, so many women in lead roles. Do you think that's helping us move along? Is it lagging behind where we were, or is it showing what we could be?
What we could,
Or what
the
we are?
numbers say otherwise. The numbers say there's not enough, right? The numbers say there's still plentiful options for white folks and not for black folks or other people of color. Yeah, because there are multiple stories to be told.
Right.
There's myriad stories to be told, and so, and we're seeing those things happen on the fringe in the indie world, and so that folks have to keep making that stuff happen. And yeah, it's beautiful to see women at the top, like Viola, Carrie, like, these are the folks that you begin to be more aspiring to, right? It's actually feasible, and so yeah.
It was great because I do a lot of like table reads locally, for different projects, and I'm working. And so last year, about March, I had worked on a number of different things. And I worked with two black female directors on Greenleaf. I worked with two different female directors. I worked with, just all these different people where I'm like, 5 years ago, none of these people would have had these opportunities. So it's been great to see it on this end. But
so women in front of and behind the camera, right?
Right.
Like, it's popping everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just space and opportunity.
And what I love about Atlanta and Georgia at large, that I think a lot of people outside of this are just starting to realize, is how diverse our population is across the board. There's this image of the old South and image of the new South. And, we're way more progressive than a lot of people realize. And the arts has definitely shown that. But okay, what were some of the greatest challenges in making chores?
Getting them, picking up.
She about to get her a little too real. Wait a minute.
I mean, okay, so a lot of people ask questions about like navigating all those worlds. It's difficult to create a schedule to make something happen. A lot of the time is being patient enough to say, okay, this window is opening up. I'm going to do this. It's really saying this will be, right? So sometimes when the wheels start to spin, you just got to run with it. So Ebony Blanding helped me produce Chorus, aka Chores, and Brandon Williams helped me produce the night. It's like getting the challenges are, where am I going to shoot? Oh, okay. They knocked it out, and keeping things small. I like to work with with particular folks. It doesn't have to be a big to do. You have to concentrate and be essential and effective in the kinds of with the bodies and the resources that you have. That's how I make stuff happen for me. It's a habit that has been inherited from my mother. And the black. I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna make it happen any way I can make it happen. And so those are the challenges. It just, and sometimes it's confidence and energy, right? Like mental health, like you like, oh man, today I don't feel it, but some kind of way somebody says, oh yeah, it's actually also telling people what you're doing. You don't want to tell everybody, but you want to concentrated, authentic community that is seeing who you are and seeing what you're trying to do, and them folk ride, right? And that's what I have with the folk that I have worked with. Shout out to my people.
Now, how do you think, and this is two questions I'm going to try to put together, but how do you think your perspective has benefited your art? And what are some of the things that being at Spelman, helped teach you about being a filmmaker and being the process? Like, how do these two sides work?
So Spelman is about learning about the self. Like you're constantly doing that. Self-awareness. But that's what that was. So then I learned to be more honest. Like I think that's when maybe my work got better, or when my work, or at least to me, when I became like I just, when you're just spilling it over, it's this utter and complete authenticity of self, and that just allows the work to be richer, and so that dynamic, being able to hold myself. The kind of work that you need to be making. Did I answer the question?
Yeah. So through your process, because when you're talking about your set, I'm like, well, that's definitely a post-corona friendly environment.
I told you, we've been doing it. What are we saying? Like we know what it is to work in micro spaces. We know what it is to make stuff happen. Like, and it's gonna be tasty and good. Like that's what you do. You make with little.
So, are you open to using materials from unknown writers, or do you just work with your own project?
I mean, of course, I'm willing to work with other people, but for me, experimentally, like these are things that are deriving from myself. Am I open to working with other people? Of course. I mean, it just, the vibe got to be right.
Right.
You move.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times we in this industry know the art of making it happen, and that you can't do it alone. That it is a collaborative situation at all times. And it's just now we have to relearn collaboration. We're getting to the end now. It's already been almost an hour. Look at this. But if you were to give some advice moving forward, you got a room full of people that want to know about filmmaking. What are some of the things that really stood out to you about this is what you need to do?
It's observant and listening. I think that's been the biggest thing for me. I always say I took the note. Take the note. I take the note as an actor. I take the note as a maker, a material maker, a digital maker, a creator. Like in general, like folks are there trying to tell you, not tell you, but trying to help you hone who you want to be, and getting you to the spaces that are best for you. Work with the people to your left and your right, who understand and see things comparably or similarly as you. It ain't got to be right on, but and work in small spaces and be be open. Right? It doesn't have to look like what it looks like. It doesn't at all look like what it looks like on TV.
Right. Okay, so we're coming to our last question. Are there any stories about Georgia or Atlanta that you think are lacking in the landscape? That's something that's missing on TV, film. That's our perspective. You know, I was raised in Philadelphia, but I'm definitely a Georgia girl now.
Yeah.
What is it about our perspective that needs to get out there?
Oh man. I mean, there's so many. My sister has so many. Like we Emily got many. Like what our experiences have been as Black people reared in this community, as folks who are from more rural, whose roots are rural. What, like, those kind of things are important to me. Like, what is it to be of a legacy where you are the first in a southern city dynamic, right? Those things are big. You know, I know folks have. I don't have any like immediately in mind, but I bet, you know, other peers do. Like, that's telling those folk stories is important.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. I have really enjoyed this, my little sister, and love seeing your work on every time I see you. Watchmen, really enjoy the grounded, natural performances that you give that are just so bubbling with so much energy and yet so grounded. So I appreciate your work, sister. Thank you so much. Next week, we will be right back here, 7 o'clock, live streaming for Atlanta Film Festival. I want to thank Justice, Kevon, and Krupa, who are, yes, what's up? They're handling everything, pulling all the strings in the background, making it work for us. So thank you so much for everyone. Thank you again, Danielle. Thank you, everyone that took the time to watch us today. And come back next week at 7. Oh, yeah, and my class, Creating Three-Dimensional Characters, this Saturday. Sign up. What's up? Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.